Hi guys, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Design and a Half. So in today's podcast episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the business aspect of design and especially how business impacts design in a lot of ways, and how it actually shapes design as a result of it. Because the problem is that a lot of people don't really understand that design is not necessarily about the look and feel of things, but actually about solving problems. And those problems could either be business oriented problems or user oriented problems. And all of them coalesce into this under the guise of business, because actually what we as designers do is being involved into companies. We are working for companies basically for whom we create profit, of which profit we also benefit from, because if it wasn't for that profit, we wouldn't actually get paid. So I think it's rather important for us to understand how businesses operate, how they create cash flow, how this cash flow is positive, and especially how important or how many factors come into the decision of creating an actual physical product or an actual service in the end, rather than it being a sort of a haphazard kind of a thing. So let's just jump right into it then. First off, what is a business objective? And this is actually a question which a lot of people, even in the UX industry, don't really understand. Because when you're talking about business objectives, you're actually talking about a sort of a generic item rather than something which is very specific. And this is the main difference between talking about a business goal and the business objective. The business objective is sort of like the roofing on top of a house, whereas the business goals are sort of the pillars that are underneath it and are supporting it in a lot of ways. But let's talk a little bit about what the definition of a business objective is. It's an compass for the company dictating how the organization should allocate strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that may be available. Most of the time, objectives remain the same until the company's circumstances change. So basically, objectives are quite generic just because most of them are just common sense. Maximize profit or keep the business profitable and just not sink beneath the in a negative way and have a negative cash flow. So you always want to be in a positive cash flow, so the company always has something extra to be able to reinvest the next year, whether it's in innovation, whether it's in people, whether it's in other opportunities. That actually depends on the company and its sort of steering committee that it's holding up. It's sort of generic just because it needs to be generic. It cannot be very specific, because if it becomes specific, it becomes a business goal. And I'll give you a rough idea of what a business goal is. So it's business goals are the goals that a business anticipates accomplishing in a set period of time. You can set business goals for your company in general, as well as for particular departments, employees, managers, and our customers. Goals typically represent a company's larger purpose and work to establish an end goal for employees to work towards. Business goals do not have to be specific or have clearly defined actions. Instead, business goals are broad outcomes that the company wishes to achieve. So this is actually giving us a good idea of what a business goal is, as well as what a business goal isn't. It doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to give you a really good idea of what exactly you should be expecting in terms of an action, for example. But it should give you enough information as to know what you should be working towards. So, for example, let's say one of your business goals would be to optimize production costs. That would be resulting in some sort of actions for your company, for example, which would be reduce waste, for example, increase sales. How would you increase sales? You would add more value to products, or you would increase the product pitch that you have, or you would add more people into your sales team, or you would expand into other markets. This actually depends on what exactly you can afford as a company. And this is quite important for me as a designer to understand, just because all of those actions have consequences in different departments of the company. Which means, for example, if a company wants to expand its market share, it wants to do so to increase its profitability. But at the same time, it wants to do so just to expand as a company and be able to sell more, which means it would be able to hire more people that would be able to help you in turn. So if you would be a designer that are looking for more teammates, most likely would be looking exactly at how you would achieve or how you would help the company achieve this goal of being part of several markets, for example. Either it would be, for example, if you're a unicorn that's part of a startup and are working both in the product department as well as in the marketing department and are assisting marketing with all sorts of flyers and cool graphics and so on. This ties into, you can actually add value to that specific business goal yourself, which makes sense for you to understand the business goal and see how you can help out with that specific business goal yourself. So this is actually why in a lot of companies they are still operating, instead of in this new agile method or agile way, they are still operating in a waterfall system, just because this concept of asking questions is just look at it from this mental model, sort of. What is the objective I need to reach? The objective is this or that. What goals do I need to target in order to reach that objective or meet that objective? Well, this and this and this. Okay, what actions do I need to perform in order to meet the following business goal? So these and these and these. And what actions do I need to take, or what are the options that I have in order to perform those actions that will result in me completing those business goals? So this is sort of like a waterfall system where you go from objectives to goals to actions to options, and those options sort of that's where you come in as a designer with your creative thinking and with your sort of input. By looking at things from an outer perspective, you can just add to that and think of ways of how you can solve a problem, because all of these are actual problems. So reducing waste is a problem. How can I solve it? Well, these are the following steps that can be done in order to reduce waste. How can I achieve those steps? Well, you can do this and this and this and that. How is it possible? What departments do I need to engage? Who are the people who I need to talk to? What are the things that I need to do? What can I do as a designer to meet those business goals? Those are actually actions that you can do and questions that you can ask yourself whenever you're talking about one of your clients, for example. So a lot of you probably are in the in roles of freelancers, for example, and I think in that specific position you are always dealing with customers as well as companies, and oftentimes you are sort of needed to understand and to develop this keen sense of business acumen and understanding the business language that all of these people speak in order to make a deal happen with them. So in order to get a better sense, or not a better sense, in order to be able to pitch for a specific client better, having knowledge within the business side of things helps you tremendously gaining the client on your own side. Just because you're able to convince him that whatever you're doing is sort of aligned with whatever he has in mind in terms of an objective. So whenever he talks to you, the main thing he does is just tell you what his business objectives are and what his goals are. So he wants to launch a new product. That's where you should be coming in and saying, why do you need to launch a new product? Well, he says, well, I need to enhance my portfolio. And what you basically do is work backwards by asking those 5 whys. You're getting at the root of the problem, and you're actually uncovering the business objective. And that's actually helping you to sort of build a pyramid image in your head about how his business works in a way. And there's a lot of tools available at your disposal to actually help you do this. One of the best ones out there from my perspective, and the one that I've used a lot, is the business model canvas. So the business model canvas was first of all designed not necessarily for design pitches and so on. It was designed for people who are actually having startups, or are working in startups, or are trying to build a pitch for an angel investor, or for someone who is planning on investing into those businesses. So what the business model canvas actually teaches you and gives you is an overall image of a business's sort of plan, vision, as well as a strategy for a specific product they want to put out. And I think this type of tool could be useful in any type of designer's sort of arsenal, if you will, just because it enhances a lot their sort of not strategic view, their clear the clarity of their view of that their client's business. I'm sorry that I'm stuttering. It's just it's sort of been a long day. Okay, getting back on track. Business model canvas helps you just be able to see the many types of informations that you would be normally missing out on if you would be going, for example, at that specific client alone and just coming back to him with a lot of emails and going like, fuck, I just forgot about asking him about this, and I forgot about how he plans on going to market, and I forgot about asking him who his retailers are, how he plans to sell this, and I wanted to ask him about the risks that he sees. And all of these things you should probably be asking any type of client anyways, as a good designer. So knowing the business model canvas can only be a huge advantage for you going forward, whether you're a UX designer, whether you're a logo designer. I think it's even useful in that case because it gives you a super clear picture. If the client doesn't, it gives you a super clear picture as what the company does, what it wants to have in terms of a product, what its overall strategy is, and you can always get back to that thing as an artifact and just reference information from there to be able to integrate in your own work and have something which in the end really represents the company, solves the client's problem, as well as fits the overall business objective, as well as the goal it had in mind when they actually came to you and asked you to work on that specific problem they had. If you're actually interested in knowing more about the business model canvas, I'll link into the description of this podcast episode some information about that. If you want to browse it, it's up for you to see. Okay, moving on. One of the other points I wanted to touch with regards to this business aspect, with regards to the design, is how a business goal affects design and development at the same time. So whenever a new business goal arises, what usually happens is that there's a lot of action points that are coming up in terms of potential paths towards this goal. that are going to affect either development or design, whether it's a new product you're building, whether it's a new service someone else is building, whether it's people that are being brought into your team or people being taken out of your team. For example, if someone's business goal is to reduce their losses, for example, they might decide to cut some of the people out, which means some of your team members could be downsized and they could be just sacked. That's also a result of a business goal. Same goes for increasing your team size. Same goes, for example, if your roadmap is being really bumped up. And for example, roadmaps are really good at giving you a good sort of a clearer picture about business goals, just because you can look at them and either extrapolate from the information at hand what the business goal might be, or if it's not necessarily clear as to what business goal those people had in mind when they built that roadmap, you can always ask. Asking is never a bad thing to do whenever there's unclarities in any type of situation. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask questions with regards to business with the business side of things, just because either they don't understand it or because business has just become this sort of mystical type of entity that nobody really understands but everybody fears, and when you pull it out, everybody's like, oh god, it's business, let's just go away, or this is very complicated for the layman. It's really not that complicated, to be honest. It's probably more simple than we actually like to know or actually like to think, and of course it requires people to be educated into this subject. It requires people to be attentive to certain things and certain informations that are circulating within a company, but those things can be done. So it's not like someone cannot really understand business. No, business could be understood by absolutely anyone working in any company. And actually, once business related information just becomes readily available to all people, that's a good sign that the company is super transparent with you. It's a good sign that leadership understands the value of communication within a company and understands how communicating those business objectives and those business goals with absolutely everyone in the company brings alignment. And what that alignment actually does in the end is facilitate the collaboration of people on several projects, as well as making sure that whenever there's a cool new initiative or a new thing that's being done, those things are usually will happen in service of the company and in service of those business goals or business objectives. And that's the sort of beauty of total transparency with regards to a company's business side of things into its internal workings, so to say. Obviously, if a company is totally transparent with the outside world as well, that brings a lot of additional advantage. But that's a different sort of discussion that I just don't want to get into right now. But getting back on what I was saying earlier, how does a business goal affect a roadmap? For example, you could say that new products are being developed, new services are being added, some services, some existing things or products as well are being re-engineered. There's development effort involved, there's design effort involved, there's customer experience effort involved, there's UX effort, there's marketing effort, there's sales effort. All of those things are information that is quantifiable and should be quantifiable by the business objective and the roadmap together. Those are actually the ones which give you the heading towards where you're going to be going with your team, as well as probably sort of the starting point where kickoff meetings are being initiated and are sort of used to develop a rough sketch, a rough idea of what the sort of MVP wants to look like. But this is not always the case. This actually depends on each company's specific culture, what product it's doing, as well as what types of outcomes it is looking for. And like all of the things that I said earlier about how to meet a business goal, those are actually part of a business strategy. So business strategy comes in support of those business goals, and our business strategies are developed to help business goals get accomplished. And they are sort of plans that are being made that those business goals are being met with various types of actions and enterprises and so on. But now let's talk a little bit about something which is, I think, odd, because it's normally attributed to UX, empathy. However, this time we're not going to be talking about normal people's empathy, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. That sounded weird. Normal people's empathy. Oh well. I think we need to talk about business empathy, because this is a different type of empathy that designers, and actually even UX designers, use quite a lot of the time to be able to get a better understanding of the business, its objectives, its goals, its strategies, and sort of extrapolate information by asking a lot of questions with regards to things. First of all, you need to be thinking as a designer. You should be thinking as a business owner. So if you are a business owner, you are focused towards certain aspects, like what do I want to do, how do I plan on doing it, how much will it cost me, and how will I measure my success to make sure what I did worked. Those things are actually really important because they tie into the previous parts of this conversation that related to the business model canvas. And those are some of the questions that are being answered in the business model canvas too. One thing that I think is really, really vital to a lot of designers is to understand cost. I think cost, in terms of a business term, is something which some of my fellow designers and a lot of people out there that are working in design don't really understand properly, because a lot of the decisions inside of a company are made solely on understanding cost and its types, because there's not just one type of cost. The cost can be development cost, it can be design cost, testing, marketing, sales, or operation cost, which don't necessarily quantify in a money sort of aspect, or they don't transform into an end cost of money. That can be time, it can be effort, it can be absolutely anything. So cost is very important, just because in some situations having a really large upfront cost that can benefit you on the long run could be providing with a better strategy than having a small upfront cost that gives you lower return on investment. And what return on investment actually is when you're adding work into something, you expect that work to return in the form of money. For example, if you're talking about a company, or efficiency, because for example, a lot of people invest in new technologies, and they do this not necessarily because those technologies will make them money. They could save them money, for example, and that's sort of the equivalent here. I think I'll probably have to do a whole episode just focused on cost structure and understanding the concept of cost as a designer, because it's such an important term. And I think I might even do a video on this one, because it sort of needs to be explained in a more visual way to be properly understood, as well as to be properly digested if you want to. However, getting back on what I said earlier, the labor cost is another thing. It's not only the money cost. You also have a time cost, you have a labor cost, and you have financial cost, which, for example, in some companies' situations means outsourcing some of the services they have, because the upfront cost of outsourcing could be even smaller than the long-term cost of hiring a person, because that means extra time, extra resources spent to get that person on board, the uncertainty that that person could deliver on what they are being hired to do. Those all are factors which someone in a company needs to think about, and how it affects the overall plan to execute a service and deliver a service or a feature, which is the main reason why labor cost and financial cost oftentimes go together. So the time, labor, and financial costs are sort of interweaved with each other, and they are working together in unison whenever you're talking about the cost of a specific service or feature or product within a company. I think a lot of people overlook the hiring part just because it's something which tends to be not taken into account. But hiring cost is actually quite large. Think about the fact that you're trying to create a new product. However, you lack the specialists to help you deliver that product. You lack 2 marketing people, you lack 2 designers, you lack 2 developers. You need to actually hire those people. Those are costs. Those are costs associated with time spent interviewing candidates for those positions, which you need to take out of your own time budget as a person. Even if you're a manager or a developer who are looking into doing the technical tests, though that is time. Time is a resource that, if consumed, will is sort of finite. You have only 8 hours or 9 hours within a day that you can actually work within. If you use one of those to be in a technical discussion, and you have another one in a meeting, and you have another one doing, I don't know, God knows what, basically you're just detracting from the time when you are being productive, which means there's a cost associated with delivering a specific item or creating a specific feature or product that is sort of adding up at the end of the day, which is why we have processes like waterfall, which are even in use today, just because in order to be sort of normal and to be a functional human being, you just cannot be working 9 hours of a day. You need to be taking breaks, you need to go to the toilet, you need to go eat something, which arguably doesn't take you more than half an hour. But even if it does, that's 1 hour out of your whole work day which is being spent, and it's not being used for working. Added to that, you have breaks, for example, where you go pee, or you have to do some chores within the house. Especially now when we're talking about being at home, I think the upfront time cost is even larger than it was when we were at the office. And a lot of people tend to forget this, which is why sort of in gaming especially, and in game development, this is becoming a huge problem for being able to hit the release dates that people had originally planned, just because of this time cost associated. But getting back to the sort of hiring cost that was mentioned earlier, if you're talking about 5 people who are coming into your company for a technical interview, you're already talking about 5 hours lost, either from one person's schedule or from 5 person's schedule. This depends on the company, how it works, how many people they have at their disposal, and so on. So if you're already talking about that type of cost, you need to be making sure that that specific cost is not hindering you to be able to still deliver what you had planned, which is why some people prefer, for example, outsourcing, and why they prefer to be able to have upfront cost which is larger. For example, why certain companies ask for huge projects, or sorry, not for huge projects, ask for huge amounts of money upfront for specific projects, because they know, or they would do their own due diligence in the background and do the math and see, well, it would cost them this to produce this, so if we sort of slightly undercut that cost, we would be able to undersell them, or actually sell them the idea that it would be actually cheaper to work with us than have to hire 4 or 5 additional people to be able to deliver this feature completely, which is why outsourcing is there in the first place. The last thing I really wanted to mention with regards to cost is that understanding costs means understanding priority, which leads to better decision making related to features, complexity, and sizing in terms of design, as well as overall better choices in terms of scoping out, for example, the size of a feature. It's the way it works. And this is me talking about UX design mostly, because my current specialty is working as a UX designer, so I'm talking from that sort of hat right now. But wrapping up, I would like to add something which I think it's quite important to also mention, and that is understanding opportunity and what business opportunity actually is, as well as sort of the types it has. Like, business opportunity classifies itself in sort of 3 types, which is long-term, mid-term, and short-term business opportunities, and they can be high or low yield, or ranging from high to low yield, or low to high risk, or actually vice versa, high to low risk, whatever you want to look at the scales from. It's all about the perspective here. Business opportunities actually are risks that could be quantifiable as a potential positive or negative impact for your company. So an opportunity could be important for you, or could be worth chasing. For example, if, say, you are trying to develop a new feature and you see a new technology coming up, and that technology actually could save you some money if you would be implementing it, but it would also add some overhead for your development time. That is an opportunity which has some medium to high risk associated with it. That actually depends on the technology, but that goes outside of the scope of this discussion. The point was that opportunities come along, and especially business opportunities come along whenever you're working towards an objective or working towards a goal. And in some situations you might want to actually use those opportunities and transform them into actions, to be able to capitalize on those opportunities and transform them into profit. However, what happens, for example, if you don't choose an opportunity? It transforms itself into an opportunity cost. Why? Because if by choosing that specific opportunity or going that specific path would have helped you be more positive towards your cash flow, or increase your cash flow, or add cash on your balance, not chasing that opportunity transforms itself in a cost. Not necessarily in cost is anything that is negative. Sort of positive balance is anything that would transform itself into cash at the end of the day. Sort of that's the whole gist of it. I hope I was actually clear enough with that, because it's difficult for me to explain this, and I'm really hoping you guys understand the concept behind, because I want to help you with this episode to get behind the concepts of business, so to say. Okay then, this would be it then for tonight. I hope you learn something useful. I hope this is going to help you understand your clients better, your businesses better, perhaps even as designers, to be able to manage them better, to be able to understand what it is that you need to be doing for clients. And please, if you like to share this episode with other designers or fellow designers, do so. I would be really grateful to you. I'm still trying to grow this podcast into being bigger. My aim is not necessarily to sell anything here. This is not the point of this podcast. It's sort of to build a community and to be able to help other people by informing them of stuff they might not be knowing or might be missing out on. So if you want to, please share it with your friends, your designer friends. Tell them to subscribe. I would be really happy to see more people subscribing. Just because there would be more people to share information with, not necessarily anything else. So there's no hidden agenda here, if that's what you're thinking. I do this actually on my own time. It usually happens at night after my day job sort of finishes, and I do this just because I want to help people out to understand everything that they are part of better in terms of design and the language of design, and how complex our jobs are at the end of the day, just because they have so many nuances and so many sort of tie-ins with certain aspects of other jobs and other things that are connected to design, like for example business or development or psychology, which is huge. And I think a lot of people don't talk enough about psychology and its influence on design as much as they should, probably, which is why I'm going to do another episode on this particular subject, but probably sometime later. I'm not really sure why. I have to see about that. However, thanks for sticking with me up until this point. Please subscribe and share with other people if you like this. I appreciate absolutely each and every one of the people that are listening into this podcast. I think you're awesome, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart from pressing that follow or that subscribe button. You're really cool. That being said, have an amazing rest of the week, and I hope to be hearing you or seeing you this Friday on this week's last episode. Have a good one, guys, and have a wonderful rest of the night. Bye bye. Take care.